David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another fountain pen review. I have always enjoyed introducing you to artisan makers you might not be familiar with who are doing unique and creative work. And today I have two pens to show you from Papa J Studios. The team behind the brand is Luke Weichman and his wife Christina. They are based out of Normal, Illinois, which is in central Illinois, just north of Bloomington. Whenever I hear of Bloomington, I think of the movie from the late 70s, Breaking Away, which is set in that area. So that's my recommendation for you as far as a movie goes. If you have never seen Breaking Away, then go find it. I don't think that you'll be disappointed. The company, Papa J, is named after Luke's father-in-law. Papa J passed away in 2020 and was heavily involved in supporting people through addiction recovery. Luke regularly donates to charities who support that cause with a portion of the proceeds from this business. Luke began his career in woodworking by doing lots of what's called flat work, like things like cutting boards, charcuterie boards, and making furniture. But a year or two ago, he was intrigued by wooden fountain pens and began transitioning from flat things to round things. Like a lot of makers, he began with kits, but that quickly transitioned into bespoke pens, as well as creating some very unique custom resins. Luke's wife, Christina, caught the pen-making bug as well, and the majority of the resin blanks the company uses are her designs. I have said this many times that one of the biggest hurdles a custom maker has is being unique. There are so many pen designs and resins that are widely available that it's tough for a maker to stand apart from others. But I will say that it's Papa J's unique resins that really have helped them make a name for themselves in a short period of time. There have been some which are more standard, but others which contain lots of glitter. There are others that incorporate natural elements like flowers and feathers. The company was kind enough to send two pens my way for review. What I'm going to do today is go over the parts and features of these pens, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for about them. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample, or maybe two. So, in order to get a closer look at these two special offerings, please join me over here at camera 2. As I said, I received two pens from the company. This one arrived in a box, and this one arrived in a rickshaw pen sleeve. On there is a caricature of Papa J, the namesake of the company. On a little side note, something I really enjoy about this hobby is that the maker community is very welcoming and encouraging of one another. They really want each other to succeed. They are very willing to help one another make the best products possible while helping them infuse their own sense of style and creativity. I have known makers who have flown halfway across the country to help someone get their CNC machine set up just right. It's kind of funny. If I discover a maker that I'm not familiar with, I might ask one of my friends in the community about them. Typically, the answer is, oh yeah, they're great. Oh yeah, they're really cool. And I receive positive vibes from other makers, which makes me feel better about presenting their work here on my channel. There was one time, however, when I asked a maker about someone and didn't receive a positive response. I reached out to a different maker and they let me know about their own negative experiences with that person. I talked to a couple of more folks at a show and they independently conveyed additional negative experiences. There's an old saying that if one person calls you a horse, ignore them. But if 10 people call you a horse, then it's time to buy a saddle. It was time for that maker to buy a saddle, and they have not been featured to date on this channel. Okay, enough of that. Let's get back to this maker at hand, which lots of people have had positive things to say about. Let's take a look at the model that's here in the sleeve first. And this one here is one of their Floral finial models. And that the barrel is an in-house resin called Jade Mermaid. And then you can see here on the cap that it is a clear resin infused with some gold leaf in there, or gold flake. Here on the finial is that floral pattern, or not pattern, it is actually flowers that are basically embedded in the resin here up top, giving it that Floral finial model name. And I think that this is an interesting combination of the green resin that has a little bit of chatoyance to it, and then the clear cap, and then being able to see the gold nib underneath there. And I think the gold nib with the gold flake basically complements the looks of this pen well. And I kind of like that you can see the section in here as well. So this one is, like I said, their Floral finial model. And then let's take a look at the one in the box. It did come with a couple of stickers, this floral sticker as well as a company logo. And then inside here, we have one of their floral body models. And this is called a floral body model because inside here, it is actually, the material is an in-house resin called pine cones and petals, because there are pine cones in there as well as flowers, and then also some feathers, which are interesting as well, and the gold flake. And I think it's an interesting combination of materials. And I'm always fascinated about how resin makers make this resin, because there's nothing poking out here. It's not like there are hard materials in here. So I think that they basically grind it down and then add an exterior coat of resin. Or I've heard that there's sometimes where adding the resin in here kind of infuses the material into the resin, and so it kind of becomes one material. There's a varying of techniques in that regard. And then here we have the cap, which is made of a white resin, and I like the fact that the cap, even with the white resin, is infused with that gold leaf. And I'm not sure if I've seen that before where it's a more opaque resin with the gold leaf in there, but I think it works in this regard, and it creates a nice transition between the two materials. So let's go ahead and take a look at the parts and features of this particular model. The cap twists off with a little over 2 rotations, and underneath we have a number 6 Bach nib. Both of the nibs on this on the pens I'll show you today are Bach, and were tuned by Kirk Spear of Pen Realm, who does an awesome job. It is one of the better nib smiths out there, the nib meisters out there. The section does have a little bit of a swale to it. So it starts with the flare and goes to the swale and then straightens out until you reach the threads. And I'd say a medium-sized step up to the remainder of the barrel. That this fits my grip style very well. Now, if you want to grip it a little bit further back, you can. And I don't feel like you'd have your grip slip down to this little swale, but that swale is exactly where I would typically hold it, and so it works well for me. This pen does have a decent amount of weight to it in this resin. With the additional elements, it adds some extra weight to it. That this pen is not designed to post, which is fine. I don't want to cover up that material. If I bought this pen, then I'm wanting to look at this material that's included in here as well. This is a cartridge converter pen. It accepts standard international cartridges, and a converter is provided. With the solid construction of this particular resin, then I think eyedropping would be fine. I don't believe that it would stain any of the inside material because I believe this is completely solid resin. But I believe that eyedropping would be fine. Okay, let's take a look at the other model here. This was that floral finial model with the jade mermaid, and on this particular one, like I said, I really liked the chatoyance of this green material, and I thought that it played well with the gold flake here, and then again a look at the flowers that are embedded there in the cap, and then this one, again, just a little bit over 2 rotations, and the style is exactly the same in regard to the section where there is the swale, and then there is that medium step up to the remainder of the barrel. I will say this one is a little bit lighter. They are different sizes. This one is a little thicker, and this one is a little bit on the thinner side. Again, with the solid barrel construction, this is a cartridge converter pen, and that I think with the appropriate silicone grease, then you could go ahead and eyedropper this pen. Okay, in regard to price, It really ranges on the Papa J's website. Their pens generally range from $225 to $350, which is an appropriate price range considering the specialized resin, and it's right in line with other comparable custom makers. I really liked it on their site that they include their sold out pens. Now, sometimes it's frustrating when someone doesn't have that much inventory and I'll see all these sold out pens, but for a maker like this that makes some very special resins, that it helps to be able to see the wider variety of offerings that they've had. And it would help me make a decision if I wanted to place a custom order for something similar to what they've done in the past, and being able to see that wide variety is helpful. So I would encourage you to check out the Papa J's website to see some of the offerings that they currently have available, as well as the ones in the past. They recently released some Halloween-themed pens, one with a witch's hat for a finial and another with a bubbling cauldron, complete with eyeballs. Originally, I was going to say that the eyes must have been Eye of Newt, but then I did a little research, and Eye of Newt is not the eyeballs of the animal. They are actually mustard seeds, which are small and round and resemble eyes. And if you didn't know the little rhyme you hear witches say, the double, double, toil and trouble, that comes from the Shakespeare play Macbeth. And that's where the Eye of Newt term became more widely known as well. So today's video was special. You received both a movie recommendation as well as Shakespeare facts. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at some measurements, some size comparisons, and then I'll come back with a writing sample. Okay, in regard to some size comparisons, I mentioned that this model here is just slightly larger, or basically slightly thicker. And it has a little bit of a different profile. But in regard to pens from other custom makers, here is an offering from White Bear Pens, and then here is something from Rob's Penworks. And then here is something from Maverick Pens. This is one of my favorite resins just because it's a unique layered resin. And they don't just glue the resins together. They actually basically pour one and then wait for it to dry, pour another, pour another, pour another. And so something like this can take weeks for it to pour and cure. And I think it's just an interesting material. In regard to pens from a couple of other makers, this is something from Good Made Better. I really like the texture on here, which is actually hand engraved or hand ground out. So every pen is going to have a little bit of a different wood texture to it, which looks amazing. And then here's one of my favorite pens from Jonathan Brooks, and this is his Earth Magic material, and I just think the vibrance of this purple in contrast with this copper looks amazing. And then finally, here it is with a Lamy Safari. In regard to uncapped comparisons, here it is with that pen from Rob's Penworks and the White Bear Pens model. And then finally, here it is with the Lamy Safari. So here we go with the writing sample for the Papa J Studio. And we'll call this one the Floral Finial. And this one is a medium stainless steel nib. As I mentioned, it was tuned by Kirk Spear, and I will say that it is kind of on the finer side of medium. And the ink that I'm using with this is Pelikan, Edelstein, Olivine. I thought that would match well with the barrel of this pen. This is what the ink looks like. It's a nice kind of more darker green, more saturated. This is what it looks like with Lamy Petrol, as well as Monarcha Manglar. This is what the Edelstein bottles look like. Just a really solid bottle, really heavy, and I just always kind of like the looks at it. I wish they had a little bit more ink in them, but I always like the looks of the bottle. And then, you know what, while we're looking at this, I'll do a writing sample with the other pen, but the ink I'm using is the Van Diemen's Queenstown Gold Mine, since I thought that looked a little bit appropriate for that pen. And this is what it looks like with a couple of inks that are no longer with us that I enjoyed. One was the Seitz Kreuschneck Chestnut Brown, and the other was the Franklin Christoph Terra Firma. And so this one is more of a golden brown, and then we have a darker brown, and then more of a reddish brown. And then this is what the Van Diemen bottles look like. They're 30 milliliter bottles. You can see that this one here has a bunch of golden shimmer to it. So here we go with the rest of the writing sample. I will say that this nib is tuned very nicely. Like you're not going to get a lot of line variation out of this stainless steel nib. But I will say, as I mentioned before, that it's kind of tuned more on the finer side of medium. Personally, I prefer it more on the broader side of medium, but I do find that the feedback is pleasant and it performs very nicely. That I'd say the reverse writing is a little scratchy, but it does lay down an extra fine line. And then just to squeeze in here, some fast writing. The feed keeps up well. So let's quickly take a look at the other model here, which is the Floral body. So we'll just say, let's see, how much room do we have down here? We'll say Floral body. And this one is a broad stainless steel nib. And this is, again, a little bit on the more narrow side of bronze, or broad, excuse me, bronze. It's a broad, it basically is almost more like a medium nib. But in regard to the writing sample for that, we are using that Van Diemen ink. And this one is... Again, I find the feedback to be very pleasant. You're not going to get a lot of line variation out of here. And while I feel the ink flow is on the medium side, the reverse writing on this particular nib, you can see that reverse writing isn't necessarily what this one is good for. If I can spell writing. But we'll shift it up just a little bit for the fast writing. And the feed keeps up very well. So there you have two pens from Papa J Studios, and I will say that some of the embedded resins and things like that don't speak to me as much personally, but I think that this is tastefully done, and the variety of materials that they offer on their site are very interesting. Of these two, personally, I kind of prefer the green model here, the Floral finial model, because I love this green. I like the way that this gold flake kind of plays with the nib. And then on the end, you have that interesting embedded floral aspect of it. And so of the two, I prefer this particular model, but the floral body model has a lot going for it as well. And so I encourage you to check out the Papa J website to see what other things they have going on. Okay, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.